Hey everybody, Dan here with Pain Free You. Today I wanted to talk about tinnitus, the ringing in the ears, the noise in the ears. And so I get a lot of requests for this topic, and figured I'd finally get to it. So before we start, smile, hand on the heart, slow the breath. Breathe in the calm, exhale the chaos. Breathe in the quiet thinking, exhale the inner noise of thought. Just keep doing that. Tinnitus, the ringing in the ears. So, simply put, sometimes we hear the body. And in the case of the ringing in the ears, it can be fairly scary because, hey, my ears started ringing, what's wrong? We go to the ear doctor, we get it checked out, and they said, no, your hearing is fine, we don't see anything, there's no infection, no damage, no nothing going on, but yet we hear this ringing in the ears. And so what I will tell you is, I've got at least 2 people that I've worked with that had significant ringing in the ears. One gentleman was so severe that he said it sounded like a freight train was running through his head. And this gentleman, through the work, through the concepts which I teach in my daily videos, was able to resolve this noise in his ears. His actually started by an engine he was working on in the garage backfiring in a big pow. And so in his case, the brain perceived danger, turned that on, and it took some time, took some patience, but he was able to overcome that. Now he still is challenged a little bit with anxiety, but the ringing has stopped. So, the other person is somebody who was in my group for a little while, significant ringing in their ears, and they were able to overcome that. So my general take on it is it's no different than any other symptom. Fear and attention fuel it and keep it going. So if you're the type who wakes up and the first thing he goes, is it there? Oh, I can hear it. Oh no! Ah! Right? The more you listen for it, the more you hear it. The more fear there is behind it, oftentimes, the louder it gets. And I'll encourage you to look back through your own experience. The times when it's been the loudest are likely the times that you've been most panicked or freaked out about it. And so, there was an interesting presentation at the workshop I went to, the Mind-Body workshop. And they were speaking about tinnitus. And one of the questions, one of the presenters was pretty matter-of-fact about it. When somebody comes into her office and she's an audiologist, a specialist in ears and vertigo and tinnitus, and somebody comes in and goes, I've got ringing in my ears. She's like, okay, and? Sometimes we hear noises. Sometimes we can hear our breath. Sometimes we can hear ourselves swallow. Sometimes we hear clicks in our joints or fingers or whatever. The body is not completely silent. And with more fear and attention, the brain says, uh-oh, something bad's going on. Let's listen for that. And it can turn up the volume. And so what was interesting is this presenter at the workshop asked 2 really important questions that I'll suggest that you ask yourself to determine how big of a problem you perceive tinnitus and the ringing in your ears to be. One is, how often do you notice it? 2, how much are you bothered by it? Because what you'll find is if you look for it less, you'll end up not noticing it as much. And how bothered are you by it determines how big of a problem it is for you, and how loud it is, and how much you notice it. So, I've been talking about being unbothered, or indifferent for the past 6 years that I've been doing these videos. Indifference. Okay, so what? Not a big deal. Is it preferable to have a ringing in your ears? Absolutely not. Is it harmful? No. But Dan, it's keeping me awake at night. Okay. The answer to the questions which I have just posed, in the case where it's keeping you up at night, is you probably notice it a lot, perhaps all the time. And the answer to the question, how bothered are you by it, is probably significantly. And look, I get it. It can be extremely loud sometimes, and I've heard people describe it in such a way that it's like freight trains, super loud, very distracting. But if you've been checked out by the medical establishment and they're not finding a cause for it, a medical cause, a disease-based, tumor-based, anything, I'm not saying that to scare you, because in almost all cases that was presented on stage, tinnitus is a mind-body issue, not a physically caused issue. What they're saying is, scientifically, there's almost no physical reason to have tinnitus. They're saying all tinnitus, they said it from the stage, all tinnitus is mind-body, which to me means it's caused by the brain perceiving danger. And therefore the solution, which I teach every day, applies to tinnitus, the ringing, the noise in our ears, just as much as it did to my back pain, or to somebody else's headaches, to somebody else's digestive issues, or neck pain, or whatever it may be. The key is clarity. Nothing horrible is happening. I can hear it, but that doesn't mean I'm damaged, broken, or have some kind of a disease. The less you look for it, the less you'll notice it, and the less you'll be bothered by it. But the amount that you're bothered by it is actually something that you can, with awareness, understanding of what's going on, you can actually make a conscious decision to be less bothered by it over time. A little bit less bothered, a little bit less bothered. And as the bother gets lower, you're not going to look for it as much. And ask yourself, have there been cases where you didn't notice the ringing in your ears? Of course. Why? Because you were engaged in life. You were doing something, you were out, you were doing something in life that had your attention, which pulled your attention away from it, which meant you didn't hear it, which means the less you look for it and the less bothered you are, the less it's going to interfere with your life. And so does that mean you are learning to live with it? No, you're basically learning to dismiss it as this is not a significant thing that's going on. It doesn't warrant my fear, my anger, my irritation, and my attention. So I'm going to choose not to give it that fuel, because with the fear and attention, you're fueling it and it will continue. And it can get louder the more fear you've got. So decide. This can be diminished in significance through conscious awareness of what's going on and how it works, and the fact that the less you look for it and the less bothered you are by it, the less you're going to notice it. And over time, it can literally fade away. It will become unimportant, and it will go away when you no longer view it as important and significant and a problem. So that's my take on tinnitus. I think it is, it's challenging, and it can seem very different from the things I talk about here every day. But in the end, it's just another symptom coming from the brain, perceiving danger, and the less fear and attention we give it, the more we shift our attention to living life, the less bothered we are by it, the less of a problem it becomes in our lives. And you do that consistently, it can go away completely. So, hope you found this beneficial. Love you folks, and as always, we'll see you tomorrow. Take care.